trusted you.
It's like, are you ready to go live? I am.
We're live.
That's why I hit live. Anyway,
Wait, we're
hello,
live?
everybody.
Really?
Yeah.
Everybody, we're live.
Surprise.
Welcome to Connecting the Clouds. We were doing this last week. We had an out-of-band stream because our guest was stuck in Taiwan and couldn't make the previous recording. But we kept with our normal schedule. So we've got Chris Gill on. Hi, Chris.
Hey, everybody. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for joining. I think I hit up a bunch of people and I was like, well, Chris would be fun to have on just because of the part you play in the community and everything that you've got going on.
Yeah.
So,
No,
and then we've got Amy, of course, and no Dwayne. Dwayne is on vacation. How dare he?
Yeah.
Although I'm taking vacation, so I'm going to be off the next stream. So you can make fun of me for taking time off.
We will. Yeah. Slackers in your
But if
vacation.
you want, you could guest me in and I could just, like
There you go.
Yeah, add the commentary. Shannon's going to play the part. The part of
Chris.
Shannon will be played for by Chris Gill.
Yeah, I don't know. The beard kind of gives it away, but yeah.
That's true. That is true.
Oh, so how's everybody today? Happy Friday.
Good.
Whew, happy Friday.
Good.
Yeah.
I know. That's why I know we were out chatting a little bit last night too, but I don't know that we actually slept. Did we sleep? Did anybody sleep? I did not sleep.
As far as I know, I slept. I did have a
Coffee and
weird dream
protein.
about a previous job. I was like, wait a minute. Like you have those moments where you're like late for school or you like miss a deadline at a job. I still have them every so like they're not like terror dreams, but you wake up and you're like, why?
Yeah.
Anxious
I
or
worked there for forever. And like, why did I have that dream so I had one of those dreams last night where like we didn't meet a deadline and I was like trying to explain why. And then I'm like, woke up and I'm like, God, I'm glad I'm not work there anymore. I mean, I miss the people, but I don't miss the rigmarole, the day to day. So,
See, I had a similar thing where I think it was more of a so my manager's out for the past 2 days, so today and yesterday, so it's one of those panic I need to get up and make sure that I can get everything that I can get done without
Yeah.
So
you have some anxiety, and so your body's like waking you up early. Like, whoa, I'd like to sleep an extra hour. Like, I don't have to get up at 3 a.m. Come on, body.
Right. We've been too trained as we age that emergencies or deadline. It's outage.
That fight or flight. Well, especially so Amy, I know you have had these roles where you are in the hot seat. You are supporting critical infrastructure. Chris, I think you've mostly been a developer your entire life, right?
Well, it depends on the day, right? I don't take that line. It depends, but so here, I'll give you a quick insight of my week, right? Or even just yesterday. Let's start with yesterday. So, people reach out to me so we just recently got off of our entire organization off of ADFS, thank God. So they're all,
Microsoft is probably happy. Everybody's smiling at Microsoft right now.
Probably. I hope so. So
there was a big motion to get people off of ADFS. So
yeah. So, but that's been huge, and I know one of my employees is watching this. But kudos, great job on that because he was the driving force. So I was the guy on the the soapbox, but he drove it. He drove it to completion. We got all that stuff moved out, but again, it's we go from ADFS, and I always joke it's we cover from Azure to Zune. And no joke, it's any given day. Like yesterday was, okay, I'm working on endpoint management. I actually have Intune open to my left over here, working on something, making sure that it's doing the install, whatever else. But we still config man on premises. We have cloud attached. We have all this other stuff. It's, up and down all over the place. Honestly, I was on that flip side. It's a little bit of open AI stuff too. So digging in.
That's quite
so it's so I'm over here and I'm making changes to group policy and some objects, and hopefully we can pick those up and move them somewhere. But then 5 minutes later, it's hey, you know that thing that we did the other day where we're trying to figure out some of the GPT-4 and blah 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 blah. I'm oh my God, hold on a second. There's massive context switching going on. So
I was going to say, I think because your background's very heavy on the application layer, I always just maybe incorrectly assumed you were a developer, but it sounds like you're the middleware dude.
Yeah. And honestly, it's funny you say that because it's one of those moments where, just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in type of thing.
Well, and I know you have SharePoint in your background too. And I think if you say SharePoint 3 times, it's almost like an arrow hits you in the heart, right?
Let's say the S word. Yeah.
So
S
it's like,
word, but
yeah.
Well, and so I know I've given that story. I'll keep it short, but that story really has like kind of rooted me in where I'm at now. Because had I not ever gotten into that, I would never learn this whole multi-tier architecture, fooling around with a bunch of stuff. I mean, I think it was 2012 when 2012 server came out. That day that it dropped, I went home and set up SQL on a like clustered environment. It wasn't working. I started griping about it. There was something. Sorry, Microsoft, they had to fix something, but
that never happened.
But it was like 2 or 3 days later. I'm like, look at this. I have Hyper-V. It's running SharePoint. It's on clustered SQL. It's boom, and I can test this out. I can validate for my organization at the time how to do this. They didn't because it was too expensive or whatever, but that's on them. It's like this was a good solution. It was rigid. It was reliable. It was available. But again, it's like had I not done those steps, I would never been here today.
Yeah. Okay. So I always assumed you were a developer, but you straddled. So it sounds like you've always just been a straddler. You've always kind of had to have your yeah, right. You had to kind of understand infrastructure, and you kind of had to also understand like the app dev side of things. So you've worn multiple caps in your tech career.
Yeah. And I will say, so this is in the long way around this too. I guess I'll just say last year I kind of got pulled into something within my son's community. So, aside from my tech stuff, it's like he wanted to really get into robotics more so. So with First, he's been doing the FLL, Lego League, whatever else, just another different tech type of stuff. And now into what we call the bigger, like the bash your fingers and dangerous somebody robots, but they're really safe when they're designed properly. They're really safe. But long story short, C++. They're doing C++.
Wow.
It's all C++. So you either have your choice of Java. You could do Python if you really wanted, but C++ is where they're at.
Wow.
So that's where I started in 2000 was C++. I was robotics. I was I'll throw my hat in there.
Yeah, right. Famous the narrator, famous last words. Well, so I mean, I guess it makes sense because that's like one of those lower level languages, really close to the actual hardware. So I guess that makes sense, but there's a reason why so many people got away from that, I don't think it compiles well, if I remember correctly, and you got to know what you're doing. Otherwise, you're just go down a rabbit hole really quickly.
Some of the kids that I was working with and just mentoring them on code and whatnot, it's like, it's like PID controller. Well, here's this thing, like we think of a PID controller, like I get into my car and I put on my, auto drive or whatever we call it now. It's like, that's a PID controller. It'll ramp up and it'll try and keep that same speed or whatever else. He's like, oh, I'm just going to do this. And here's this equation. He's writing on the board and he's kind of figuring it out. I'm like,
whoa, I'm mentoring you.
Yeah, we're like,
that looks great. Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Smarter than me.
I can, I validate that equation.
100%.
But it's I joke and we joke here. I'm like, I worked on like a little teeny tiny robot that maybe if it got going fast enough would move one of the blocks in this fake world that we set up for it. And these things will move an entire car if you get them moving fast enough. So.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's definitely a different time. That's for sure.
Well, it's great these kids are getting into that too. And
I know it, and it's such an amazing community too, because I'd always joke, it's like, especially this group. So 1511 out of Penfield here, it's like they absolutely have a global reach. They're not just in it for the robots. They really, really want to make an impact, to make help other people get into it. Help Shannon, you've got your own child at home. It's like if they're ever interested in it, call me up, let me know.
I definitely will. I'm a little terrified for this guy to grow older though, because he's already trying to unscrew bottle caps. I'm like, you're like a year and a half, bro.
So he'll be taking apart your toaster in no time.
Right? And then I'm like, why is my toaster
sounds like an
work?
engineer?
So we make all kinds of jokes that we think he's on the path for an engineer. He's very curious about how to take things apart, put things in. There are little toys that he's always, dropping things through, and he won't play with them. And we'll go and we'll take a look at it. The reason why is he's shoving a bunch of other toys that don't belong in there, and he doesn't know how to get them out. And it's like, okay, maybe we should play the toy the way that it was supposed to. But then I'm like, well, whatever. That also kind of discourages him for figuring it out.
Peg and the round hole guy too. So if you hit it hard enough, eventually it would stick. So
yeah, nice. Oh my god. Well, so Chris, you are one of the select few MVPs out. Well, I guess there's a number of them, but you're in the modern workplace side, correct? Or
Azure.
it's Azure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's kind of debating. I know I've had a few chats with Dwayne, who's not here, but poking back and forth. It's like, should I really get in the security side of things? Should I?
He would say yes.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, we can answer
from
for him.
From the side of like what I'm doing day in and day out. Aside from the endpoint stuff, it's like I really enjoy identity. I really enjoy that security aspect. Took a love to Sentinel when that first came out, and maybe too many KQL queries in my brain at the time, but it's like it's fun. It's fun to me to go and hunt and find things and secure stuff. So yeah, it's one of those interesting, like do I go that route or and you all kind of watched. It's like I go from SharePoint to go over here, to touch that. It's like there's Power Platform, there's some other stuff that we toy with too. So yeah, but I think security is probably the right step. I'll kind of look there, but thank you. Yeah, just renewed. Just got my.
I saw that.
So
congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats. You're well liked. I forget don't you have to like accumulate everything for the year that you've done and like write up what you've been working on?
Yeah, it's not like an easy,
not a trivial task.
No.
I know we said we're going to make fun of Dwayne, but thanks to Dwayne, because his genius when I first got into it, we had a discussion and I'm like, just lay it on me. What are the things that I should know? He goes, don't ever take for granted what you're doing. Like just jot it down in the system. So we have a tracking system. It's like as soon as it happens, like as soon as a session happens, and I go back out and just put it in there. It's like I can always doll it up later, but you mentioned the accumulation. It's like I'm betting dollars to donuts are people that just wait until the last minute. Like, here's my spreadsheet, and I'm gonna try and do this all in one shot. And it's like, if you're going to do that, there's probably 4,000 other people that are going to try and do that same thing at the same time. This is not going to end well. So it's my plea to the rest of the MVPs, the rest of the world in general. It's like, keep track of your stuff. Like, as soon as it happens, whatever, if you need to improve it for some training, for CLE, for your MCT, CLE legal term, sorry, but continuing learning and education. I didn't talk about the legal stuff until now, but
I used to work with a lawyer and I had some inclination on what they had to do. And there was one time I was walking into his office, I was fixing something for him. And he's like, how you've seen those memes, or not memes, but like TikToks where like people are hitting the space bar to like move forward. Now you can kind of like just watch it at like 2 times the speed or whatever. But that was still when you would like hit the button. So he's sitting there like hitting the button. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, this is continuing, learning credits or whatever. He's like, I had to do it to keep my law license. And I was like, I'm so glad that I saw this because I don't know if I would have you be my lawyer. And he was laughing really hard. He's like, this stuff is just stuff we have to do. He's like, fine. He's like, I'll watch it while you're in here, but when you're gone, I'm going to hit the button again. So it was funny.
If he answers the questions right, I mean, that's all.
That's literally all it is. He said too. He goes, I'm literally trying to find the questions so I can answer them, so I don't have to like listen to the whole thing. And I'm like, I get it.
I mean, we all have that internal training where you're like, and it won't let you fast forward sometimes now. I'm like,
oh god, some of those you can't flip it to 2 times or 1.5
I'm not
times.
Sharing my password. Oh yes, if this is an email, I will send it to you.
And especially, I'm sorry, but some of the really boring ones. I mean, I know they're really important, but some of the really boring ones have got like 14 or 20 or 50 road stops. Road signs. Like.
Yeah, there are times I have to like do it in multiple sessions because I start falling asleep. I'm like,
just have little guy do it. It'll probably be fine.
Yeah, right.
I was gonna say that's how we started the show, with lack of sleep. Shannon, can you send me a few of those? It sounds like I might.
Oh, there you go. You have insomnia. Just required.
Well,
training.
but I mean, so both you and Amy have older children, but they still keep you up, or is it just job responsibilities that kind of just life in general that causes the irregular sleep patterns?
Yeah, I think it's post-traumatic stress from
having kids
and that too.
Yeah.
Like,
from having a job and kids. Fair. It's life. It's life, right? Yeah.
Now I go to bed before my teen goes to bed. I'm like, good night. Just don't do anything.
What time is that, Amy? 8, 9?
About 7:30. No. 10, and then
oh my god.
But then I can't get up in the morning still. I'm like, I used to have to give up like at 5:30 with him, and Now I'm like, all right, 6:30. All right, I guess I'll get up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still wake up in the middle of the night, like with like you said, that random like anxiety, and I swear
Did
because
I do
it's like,
everything I could possibly do for the day? Like, did I or
well,
did I
it's like
not?
I think it's just like years of being in infrastructure and then like
Yeah.
overnight migrations,
Yep.
and this app can't go down unless it's 2 a.m.
Yeah.
It's like, oh god, like
So,
I'm
so you
so
mean
glad.
the on call, right?
Yeah.
The triggering.
And then working at a hospital, I actually had a pager, and I'm like,
Oh
oh
God.
god.
Whoa.
I just wanted to like check
Yeah,
it
I
out.
remember. So I don't know if you felt this way. When I got one of those, I got a BlackBerry and I was like, oh my God, I'm growing up in my career.
I
And I
know,
like literally
BlackBerry.
wanted to burn it like a week later. I'm like, this is the
Yeah,
worst thing ever. I don't know why anybody didn't tell me the real truths
right.
of
It's a
what
tether.
it's like. Right?
Please
Can't
tell me
be.
it wasn't like one of the 950s. It was like
It
with
was
the
a
full keyboard, but
curve.
you can only see like 2 or 3 at a time.
No, it
Like
was at
mine.
least a curve. It was like a red curve. So it was like 2008,
Oh,
maybe 2007. I can't
okay.
remember when that came out,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was at least a curve. And then when we moved to Exchange 2007, everybody wanted an iPhone. And so I worked with our Exchange consultant to make sure that we could have iOS devices hit the environment with ActiveSync. And oh my God, we created a flood of alerts. Thankfully, I got all the alerts. So I'm like, well, I mean, I know what we're fixing. I'm just going to put a rule in to have all those alerts go to a different folder. But yeah, so it's the things you learn from working with. I don't know. And it's funny too, because like consultants sort of like working with them kind of prepares you for your future career of where you land. Like, you figure out how to like be transparent enough with people. And you figure out how to like navigate through the different personalities, and I don't know. It's not a clear-cut trajectory. Because Chris, I forget, you're not technically a consultant, correct?
No, but
So you have been a consultant though, right?
I want to say, like, I joke, but I've talked with you and so many other folks that like I kind of treat my job like consultancy, honestly.
Okay, fair.
It's like even though it's full-fledged employment, but just knowing it's like it kind of makes it a little, I don't know, for me it just makes it a little more engaging, a little more fun. But it's like it's like, all right, here's the thing that we're trying to design. Yeah, maybe this thing is pissing me off, but this looks great. This is wonderful. Here's another segue. Here's something we need to talk about. We'll come back to that later, and pin in it, whatever else. But yeah, I would say this. So I did. I've been at Nixon Peabody for 20 years, give or take. So there was a gap in between about 7 months or so where I'd stepped away to be a SharePoint architect. So
SharePoint.
that was fun. It was honestly, it was like a consultancy because I came in, got the learner environment very quickly. So it was get in maybe 7 or 9 months, somewhere around there. But it was
sure. So one of those
at the time they wanted to take paper workflows and get it to something digital.
Oh,
so K2, I don't know if you heard K2, but K2 Black Pearl was this huge system, integrated with SharePoint, did workflow and whatever else. So we came in, we just queried and had conversations with every part of the business. They're like, oh, can we start out with like getting these 100 paper workflows done by like 2 weeks from now? I'm like, yeah, no. We got like maybe 3 of them done, and then I'm like, yeah, okay. Like we went, like I said, it came in. They had a couple different. It was Informix and some other systems they were using. Integrated everything, got it up to it's like full Kerberos environment, so they could run Power BI or the reporting at the time. Got K2 up. Spent around like $2 million of their cash, and got the environment running, and then said, okay, see you later.
Bye.
It went back to
like a true consultant.
Right. It's your problem now.
Did you make sure not to give them all of the documentation? Because that's how they call you down in the future. Like I remember, like I sat on one of those calls with one of our consultants, and they were like, and because they would always like mess with me, right? And they're like, okay, just make sure you don't give Shannon everything. And I'm like, oh, because I'm on the call and I know what you're not going to give me, and I'm going to just be a pain in the butt. Give me everything you need to give me.
Call you.
Yeah, right. Otherwise, I'll call you at 11 o'clock when I get a phone call at night when things don't work, because like our users worked all the time. I was like, can you guys sleep? Work like less. I don't, but that's the world of the investment world, right? Like they would work such odd hours. Like they would be getting ready for trading, and then some of the analysts would be working late because they had just back-to-back meetings during the day. And so I'd get emails like 10, 11, 12 at night. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm sleeping. So it's nice. Yeah. So I think that's what, like, and it's weird because that's the one job that I every once in a while have a dream about. Like, that's the job I had the dream about. Like, I miss that. I miss the people. I just don't miss the fact that I'd be bugged at all hours of the day. And I'm like, oh, God.
I know. I got bugged even like, it was the doctor couldn't get into his email. And I'm like, he can't wait till like 7 a.m. Like, it was just email. Like, it wasn't like, there's other methods of communication.
Well, mostly people like carrier pigeon in the middle of the night. You should have said that. I mean, well, of course, then people are like, you're being flippant. And I mean, like I'm trying to sleep.
I'm
like,
human.
I mean, yeah. Well, and I said this recently to a customer. I said, we still are victims to hardware and software failing. And now we're at the mercy of hyperscalers, right? That's the world we live in now. And we just hope that they've got resiliency plans. And I'd say most do. What I've noticed, and it doesn't even matter which vendor it is, the outages that they sustain tend to be different each time. So like it's iterative. It sucks that the outages have to happen, but it's at least iterative. It's not the same issue. It's not email always, right? When everything you're hosting, everything. It's always like email was the one that was down. That's how I became the Exchange admin. I figured out how to bring Exchange back online, just out of necessity. I'm like, I'd like to sleep at night.
I'm glad I didn't have to do Exchange. I just remember dads.
People thought I was crazy, and I'm like, we have no idea. Like, people love email.
I mean, and if it's down,
if it's down, it's the end of the world. And and what's funny is I know that company has moved to Teams, so I wonder at what point Teams has kind of become the de facto go forward communication tool, because I get more chatter on Teams than I do on email some days. So
I know. And what's the hate on Teams lately? I'm like, I love it now. It's
come a long way. It's a hog, I think. It's a big resource hog.
For me, it's not. And I'm like, I use Zoom and
Zoom. I never understand how Zoom works.
It's horrible.
Can you share your screen? And I'm like, I know it's here. Hang on.
I know. I'm like, let me look.
So then you're like, people are like, do you know what you're doing? And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm not a Zoom person. But anyway, so Chris,
I will say this. I will say this with team side. I know at least work had updated. I think they have a 2.0 client or whatever that's using different patterns and practices and code and whatever. That seems to be quicker. But I think it's a feature. I love it. I don't get all the alerts that I should. And it's awesome. It's perfect. It's like its own built-in focus time. I mean,
it's built-in focus time. If you ping Chris 3 times, it'll go through that.
Just like how you say SharePoint 3 times, he wakes up from the middle of the night. You say SharePoint 3 times. Chris wakes up in the middle of the night. Does somebody need me? No. So Chris, I was gonna say, I think this is a good time to maybe share your link tree. So Chris is pretty active in the community, and I was gonna maybe spend some time talking about the stuff that you wanted to talk about, just because it's an open forum. We like to bring guests on who are pretty actively involved in the community, and you've got your MVP status, but there's a lot you do. And I was like, this would be a good opportunity to start plugging what you do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So right by my ear, I know you can't really see them, but the one, the only Dwayne Natwick, who is usually on this call, originally sent me a copy of his. I'll just grab it.
Oh yeah, his book.
His Cybersecurity 100 exam. Oh God, if I can get the light out of the way.
He sent me one too.
I got one.
Awesome book. And honestly, it started this conversation with, hey Dwayne, I see that you do this a lot.
He's a machine.
What do you think? How do I get involved? And those are probably the worst words I've ever said in the past 2 years. But and I will say this, like, I don't know that I've gotten an opportunity to talk about this yet, but I'll throw this up. So yes, on that link tree, this is my book, right?
Oh, nice.
And had a blast. Yes, it's legit pretty thick. It's a nice, table piece. There's a lot of stuff.
I'm one of the reviewers.
I need a copy.
One of the reviewers. She wrote the foreword. Thank you, Shannon.
Of course, it was fun. I didn't have to write the whole book. Like, that's why
stuff in the book.
Forewords are easy, right?
reviewing the work that Chris did and like writing the foreword, so much easier than writing the book. So I don't know. It's a big book. Like I remember when they were like, chapters 16 to 18 are done. When can you read them? And I'm like, how does Chris sleep? Then I find out Chris doesn't really sleep. So that explains everything.
From this spot right here, like I seriously, I said, I didn't know what I really was getting into. I really didn't. Like I pitched the chapters, I pitched the book. I kind of went and said, here's a Microsoft exam, where they're trying to go, marry up the chapters right with it. And I will just walk through. And one night, one of those sleepless nights, I came up with the idea of, well, the way I learn is I usually get my hands on it. This is the best way for me. I can stand it up and go through whatever. So Shannon, as you know, and hopefully viewers that, have a copy or looking to get a copy, this starts out with basically just building a lab. And it's not just a lab on your device, but it is a Hyper-V lab that runs or could run on your workstation, desktop, whatever, but it's also a hybrid lab too. So
I think that's what I like the most about the book.
Yeah. That is great because if I just read like, oh, so your Windows server needs, but doing it, it definitely seals the information in your brain because words. That's great. That's a great idea. Having people set up a lab, walking them through it. That's perfect.
Yeah, because there's so many ways to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and as we were going through, I know Shannon and I were joking. Now that now that it's out of the bag, it's like the rename of Azure AD.
A lot of people.
So it's like there was some point where it's like, oh crap, like is this book gonna what's gonna happen timing wise? Right. So it's fine. It's like, hey, great news. We'll have a second edition at some point.
Right.
We can swap everything to Azure AD.
And I mean, the beauty is you're not alone, and so now everybody gets to scramble to figure out how to update their what do you call it, the certification material, because I know this hits on Azure Entra ID, but there are actual definitive, like the SC300. Dwayne's have to write the whole book, or well, maybe just CF find and replace.
Right.
And then like reread the section and just make sure he doesn't have to like reword anything, because I think the same function, because he just published that last year, I want to say, because I wrote the forward for that one too. Again, I'd love to write forwards. If folks are out there and they need a forward
writer,
a book, I'll write it. I just don't know if I'm going to write the book just yet, because you're right. It's a time suck. So I guess how much time? So you had to be very diligent throughout the process of writing that book. How much time did you commit each week to writing?
So that's a great one. So anybody who knows me, I'm a procrastinator. It's ADHD. I procrastinate the heck out of stuff, but the quality of the stuff that I put out in those 2 hours right before I have to do a session is just amazing.
Like, just in time readiness, right?
Right.
But legitimately, it was so for anybody who's like really wanting to get into this, I would say this: do it. If you're even thinking about it, just do it. Just go through the process. Just do it. It's the hardest fun thing that I've ever done. Really, truly, aside from having kids. But it's a hard, fun thing because you had to go out and, like you said, you had to pitch, like, here's all the chapters. Here's what I think is going to be in there. Here's how many pages I think they're going to be. Well, we know some of these, it's like, okay, I'm going to talk about like, Azure Backup and whatever else. There's no way I'm getting out of a chapter with 5 pages or 10 pages or maybe 15. It's like, this is probably going to be 20 some pages. So I kind of just waged. Most of the chapters were like a 2-week cadence type of thing. Either 2 or 3 week cadence. So it's like, here I'm going to go and I'm going to try and draft all this stuff up. I'm going to get it done maybe within that first week, give myself a little breathing room the next week, and then send it off to the reviewers or to Pact at the time. So but there were, seriously, with even last year, going to conferences, whatever else, there was I'm going to reach out. Hey, I can't do this week because I'm at a conference. It's going to have to push for a couple of days. Or, hey, I'm not feeling well this week. I was sick, whatever else. You just got to be honest with the folks that you're working with. They were super flexible. But there were moments where it's like, all right, I'm going to sit down. And I found that I could average somewhere between like 2 to 3 pages an hour, which was pretty good.
It's not bad.
But if I had to write the entire chapter, that was an entire Saturday. Into Sunday. So I would I'd get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning Saturday, and I just go take a couple breaks, chill with the kids, whatever else. And then it was like maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd be done. But it's like just bang it out, because it's like there's work, there's everything else, there's other responsibilities. So
well, that's why I've shied away from it, because Pact has approached me multiple times, and I'm like, I'm just
life.
Maybe eventually, maybe down the road a bit, I don't know. I keep trying to figure out, because I don't want to write one for a certification exam. Not to say that there's no value in that. It's just, I want to have to be on the hook less to like update down the road. Right. That's what I think of. And I have not found that sweet spot, because everything's always constantly updating. So I'm just like, well, maybe there's something I could talk about in the future that doesn't change every 6 weeks. So we'll see.
Can't do Azure then.
I know, or even AWS for that matter. So
Really?
they both change very quickly, and it's like, God,
I
okay.
think that's how marketing stays in business.
Right?
Let's change
That
the
is
name of
very
this.
true. Yeah, that is very true. That is very true.
I get the Azure AD thing, but it's so ingrained, and we even looked up like on Google like how many items there has references AD,
Oh, I
and it's
know.
like why not? Hey, we screwed up with the name, but we're gonna keep it.
Well, so the joke that I always made when I was working in the identity PG was Azure AD is neither Azure nor Active Directory because it's neither, right?
It's
So they probably shouldn't have ever named it that way to begin with, but there was this adoption problem, and so you had to name it something that seemed familiar but seemed similar, but is nothing like Active Directory on-prem. So I don't know. The time to probably change it would have been about 10 years ago. But then again, I will say, they've changed it very quickly in the documentation. So, so Microsoft's got this whole army of folks that handle the documentation layer. And so that's all been updated. It's just everybody now has to update exam reference material, any books that reference Azure Active Directory, any blogs that reference Azure, unless you don't care. You could like write an updated blog and reference your old blog. I don't know, because the concepts are still there. It's just now that everything folds underneath Entra, that Entra's the de facto identity platform now for Microsoft.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask you earlier, Shannon. Do you think I know Dwayne's not here, but do you think he would?
He's on chat. He just said,
well, he is on chat. That's true. So
hello,
I'm curious if he would go towards Entra and the entire Entra portal as opposed to.
I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff. My last campaign I ran was for Entra permissions management, and the KIM product in general is super cool. It's pretty pricey, so that's why it's hard to really test it out. But there's a good free trial, and there's ways in which to get better at it. And I suspect that it'll probably even change in the future, just because more and more developers are going to want exposure to the API set and build things on top of it and build workflows and things of that sort. So I suspect the pricing model may change down the road too. But yeah, I was thinking it was like $10 per compute node per month or something. And I mean, but then again, it's every identity that could log into whatever you're licensing for. And then if you license that compute node, it'll take a look at the whole entire environment. So that was a cool one. And then decentralized identity, which I think they call it Entra Verified ID now. That was, we ran a campaign on that one too, before I left Microsoft. So there are some cool areas to focus in on, and some heady stuff too, because the verified ID stuff was just like, what? Decentralized identity is kind of a weird one, but I mean, it makes sense. It's how do you do it at scale? And I think that's where some of the interesting synergies are showing up. But yeah, I mean, Dwayne, if you're out there, you should do it, because I feel like the infrastructure lens needs especially decentralized identity, because it's very heady. And when I spun it up in my tenant, I was like, oh my God, I kind of got what I did. But I think John Saville's breakdown made more sense. Okay. So I don't know if folks are watching and listening, but yeah, it's a weird, but yes, again, it's hard when you work at Microsoft. You don't get a graceful Entra ID tenant. You're part of Microsoft's centralized version of their tenant, and so you don't really have graceful access to administer it. So it gets a little tricky. But yeah, anyway. So Chris, you also do a monthly meetup. I've spoken at the monthly meetup.
He's not busy enough.
I know, because
I mean,
18 irons in the fire.
Between cooking and disc golf.
That's right, because you also are a foodie.
Oh wow!
I do have, I have
cooking.
A problem with food. Dear Lord, but yes,
I love food.
I always joke. I mean, thank you, Shannon, because no joke. If I weren't doing this, I'd probably have a restaurant or some food truck or something.
Yeah.
So,
ooh, well,
tacos rule. So it's like tacos are back,
for sure.
Taco trucks in every corner? Like when that showed up and there was a polarized political debate, but I was like, that would be cool. I'd be down for a taco truck on every corner. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But love barbecue, love, doing all that fun stuff. But maybe, one of these days, yes, I should probably take our other community hustle, which is Come Cloud with Us. So we've been doing that for roughly a year.
I was going to say, it's about a year ago, I think you guys reached out to me.
Yeah, I think you were our first speaker.
I think I was, believe it or not. And I was like, I'm so honored. I talked about the the non-human identities and how you protect them. So
yeah. Oh, that was fantastic. So, but thank you for that. Thank you for kickstarting us, because seriously, we're creeping up on, I think, 1,000 members in the meetup now. Nice. So just absolutely floored. And there was a discussion we had even as MVPs yesterday, talking about just engagement with sessions. And, it's like, how to, on premises. So do we get together and have meetups in person and, or virtual, whatever else? And a lot of the meetups, user groups have just vanished. They've kind of tapered away. They vanished.
Yeah, I've noticed
maybe
that.
because of time, maybe because things have just changed, maybe, because people don't really want to go out. Maybe work from home. I don't know. But
I work from home.
I'm there too. It's like, can I, like, if we have a Microsoft office in Fairport, which is like 7 minutes away from me, but I'm like, can I like do Teams to just, show up?
Like, hey, can we just use this room?
But in all seriousness, it's been awesome because this is similar to this type of meetup or sessions. Like, we do invite somebody to come and present, but we have a little bit of this discussion before and after. Just say, like, what are you working on? How how are things? Whatever, just kind of catch up type of thing. But it's been awesome. We've had participants from all over the world, all over the globe. We've done a few limited, like, we have to record this at odd hours because we're just time zones don't gel. But yeah, it's been fantastic. So my counterpart in Toronto, which we joke we're right across the puddle, but right across the lake. I'm looking forward to meeting up with him in person in November. So great. That'll be awesome.
Nice. I thought you had met up, so that's awesome.
No, not yet. So it's seriously, I mean, pandemic, it's like everything has been, hey, I met you in virtual. I met you in virtual. Amy, I think I very briefly met you last year at Ignite. It was like a quick, hey, fist bump. Okay, now we're going.
Yeah, I think I met you at Ignite. Yeah.
So, but again, it's like those, the IRL type stuff it's awesome. It's like, oh my God, you actually are 3D. This is great.
Right. The 3D version versus the 2D version.
Oh, apologies. My camera froze. So you're getting, at least it froze in a better spot than usual. It always looks like I'm half awake. Like maybe somebody gave me an edible and I'm like, oh God, that's really embarrassing. So at least I'm like kind of smiling.
That's fantastic. Well, Shannon, so before the show started, I mean, if you don't mind, we could go and talk about something different. It's just buy a little bit of time, but we noticed you're in a different spot now.
Oh, so, yeah. So I was telling this last week. So the short story is the people that own my house, 2 owners before me, they ran the whole house full of old coax. And by old coax, I mean the, it's a couple of generations behind what's considered current. And now that all of these vendors are giving you, gigabyte speeds, the protective sheath isn't enough to create interference with the older coax. So I've caused outages in my neighborhood, and I found this out. Of course, Comcast didn't tell it to me because it came out like 10 times over the course of 1 year. And so finally I said, look, guys, I'm getting tired. I mean, I don't mind you guys coming out because you guys fix it, but then like you guys tell me there's a problem a month or two down the road. And so what we determined was old coax, we got to rerun it. Had somebody out here, he tried to rerun it. That's when we realized how much was zip tied throughout the house. So in bad structure fashion, because that was always a no-no. You don't zip tie anything, you Velcro, right. we unless I want to go saw into a bunch of my walls, I can't go rerun coax. So I reran it in the basement, and I said, well, that's cool. I'll just move myself down in the basement. We were talking about moving down here anyway, or moving me down here anyway as my son older. And so I moved down early. So that's why I'm down here now. And then of course, I don't have my actual computer up that I do all of my streaming on. It's my work computer. And I just think I got to reboot this dang thing. You know how it goes. Like prolonging the inevitable is the thing,
Right. Delay. Yeah. I usually, if I'm going to record something, I do the full reboot because I don't want to take chances with Camtasia or,
No. Well, and I mean, and that's the thing. Like I did do a reboot a couple of days ago, but I should have done one arguably before today. So now you're gonna get Shannon looking like she's just half awake. It's fine. It's like me. It's like me in most times of the day that I'll get a little guy running around, right?
You on Teams? You just put that up.
I should. Well, now, so avatars were a thing when I was at Microsoft. Chris, I know you're a Microsoft partner, or well, you're a Microsoft shop. I guess you're not a partner, but do you have the avatar functionality on Teams now?
We do. And we've been kind of toying with it. I say toying with it inside. I'll say this, and I shouldn't joke about it, but it was an accidental thing. I'm a click happy guy, right? So I'm like click, and I'm just adding a bunch of stuff. And I didn't realize that again, in Microsoft, and a lot of, it's not just Microsoft, but a lot of these companies, a lot of vendors, a lot of companies are really trying to be 100% inclusive and accessible with stuff. So
yeah,
there's a whole different suite of things that you can configure in your avatar. So it's not just a hat or beard or glasses, but you could have a prosthetic arm or a prosthetic hand or whatever else. So I, in my click happiness, had given myself a prosthetic arm, and folks are like, did you put a glove or something else on? So I'm like clicking back through. I'm like, oh my god, I feel so like it was one of those fake call moments. I'm like, but I explained to everybody, and they're like, that's actually really cool. And it was, entire room of folks that we were talking about it, and it's like, and it was, just that moment of impact, the light bulb moments that I call them, where it's like, oh yeah, like, the folks are doing things a little bit better, a little more accommodating to include everybody. So
Shannon's back.
I'm back. I'm using my integrated cam, which I don't like this very much at all, but it's okay.
Yeah.
We have Dells at a head, and I mean, Dells are great, but they just aren't really known for fantastic video. So
well,
anyway.
So, and the other thing I was going to add, so folks maybe don't realize this, but I just so happen to have a red swingline stapler.
This is what we were talking about before you join, Amy.
Have you seen my stapler?
Yeah, he goes, you've been regulated to the basement. I'm like, oh, that is right. I was like, I couldn't remember if it was the basement or the parking.
Oh, you need
a
stapler for the basement.
Right, the red stapler.
I didn't even connect it. I'm gonna burn this whole place down.
So if you're gonna be there for an extended period, I'll ship it to you.
There you go. Wait, I think I'm here indefinitely, because I think eventually the idea is when our son gets older, he'll move to the back bedroom where I was in, and then the room he's in right now is way too tiny for all my stuff, because I have DJ gear and all my home lab stuff. And
just do not burn the house down. Okay?
I will not burn the house down. Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I used to actually like cart home actual servers as we were getting rid of them, and I don't do that anymore because I don't want the electric bill. So I've moved to Intel NUCs. I've saved for them over the course of multiple years, and it's like brought down my electric bill, but I'm still higher than, I forget what the percentage is, like 60% of my neighbors or something. And I'm like, they got to wonder what the heck I'm doing with my time. Why am I sucking up so much electricity? And I'm like, I'm just it's fine. I'll keep paying my bill. Hopefully they just leave me alone.
Right. I like how they compare you to your neighbors though. Like,
yeah.
You.
Well, I was gonna say, they don't do that for you, Amy, because I know you guys have solar. So you guys are like,
well, we have a hot tub, so that can kind of like we offset it, but if we use it, it definitely impacts any savings.
Yeah. Amy and so Nick is my boss. Her husband is
he's
my
in the
boss.
basement. He needs a stapler too. I think.
That's right. He is in the basement, because he made that joke about how now I'm in the basement too, and I'm like, I'm just trying to copy you, Nick. It's fine. But yeah, he needs a red stapler. I'll have to give him a red stapler for the end of the year.
He won't get it. He'll be like, huh?
He never watched Office Space. He's lived in America.
He does,
long enough.
but I have to like explain things to him.
It's one of those guys.
I don't know. I'm like, he has a sense of humor. I feel like
he does. He does.
But he'll be like,
does.
Huh? And then when you explain it to him, he'll think it's funny.
Yeah, I've noticed that he doesn't quite get cultural stuff like immediately, but when you remind him, he's like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember that now. Yeah, I remember that now. Science, he didn't grow up an American, right?
Yeah. I know. Like, why is everyone laughing when I say pitch a tent? Like,
too fun. Yeah. Let's not say that, Nicholas.
Yeah, don't say that.
He's gonna be like, what did you guys talk about? Like, because he every once in a while he like catches it, and he's like, I love how you make fun of me occasionally. Like, you know what? It's good. It's all in good fun. I swear.
Yeah.
And it was funny. He tried to like schedule a meeting with me when we were streaming, and so I proposed a new time, and I'm like, listen, I'm supposed to be streaming with your wife at this time. I cannot. He chuckled. He's like, okay, I'll meet with you an hour before. I'm like, okay, cool. Oh, too funny. Yeah, but I mean, I think that goes to show you like the community in the tech world's very small. I remember I used to think it was very vast and large and huge, and it's really not.
Right. Yeah. That's why, I mean, I love how, like, especially the Microsoft community, I just feel like everyone's so kind and so sharing with their knowledge. And it was nice to venture into it, because at first when I was like, who are these MVPs and who are these people? Like, how do I find who to connect with? And just migrating from like the VMware, I mean, that's a great community too. And it was just, I knew all those contacts, but Microsoft, I'm like, we don't have VMugs and, Microsoft meetups. And that's, that's why I would love like a Microsoft local meetup, but
They used to have them, Amy, because I used to be very heavily involved with Project Leadership Associates, the big Microsoft consultancy here in Chicago. Now they did more than Microsoft. They did like Cisco occasionally, and obviously VMware and EMC and things of that sort. But their predominant expertise lied in the Microsoft camp. So there used to be meetups here. I just don't know if they're still around post COVID. Like COVID ruined everything. Well, how about this? Maybe it didn't ruin. Well, I think we can say now it ruined everything, but it also like changed things too, right? So I don't think. I mean, I'm hopeful they come back. Maybe they get rebooted as something new.
Well, yeah, because even the metro is changing its schedule because not people are riding the train now. There's no 9 to 5 commuters.
That's what a lot of folks I've been chatting with is, they're trying to figure out. It's like most of these things, most of the meetups were after hours. So I was super excited for this today. I'm like, yes, this is like during the daytime. It's awesome. It's like it breaks the day up a little bit, but that's fine. It's like it's a good time. A lot of the stuff that we do, it's 7 p.m. but folks are watching it afterwards. It's being recorded, it's being live streamed, but they're watching it afterwards. Same thing with the meetups. It's like most of those traditionally are 6 o'clock type of thing, right? Folks get out of work, we give them a little bit of break, and then it's a later in the day. But along with that comes the resources for where you're having it and who's available and who's there to secure it. Microsoft offices here have been super kind. The folks part of our like meetup group here, the Azure Rock in Rochester. Two folks from Microsoft are basically running that for us. We do it infrequently. It's like every couple months, but it's at the Microsoft office. Not everyone's that fortunate. So it's like, where do you have these? If you haven't been able, or if there's a new cost associated with stuff now, where do you go? So one of the things that a couple of us suggested is like, just find a library. Libraries are good. It's like a couple, honestly, like we have Wegmans here, but it's like other places have, pretty decent sized area, maybe a shopping center or something like that. It's just like get together, have a quick meetup, have a presentation or whatnot. But yeah, it's a different day and age for sure. So
I hope we go back to it, right? Like I've noticed I've gone into the office now. Well, we typically try to go in twice a week, right? Unless we're traveling or unless like something prevents it, like we all try to go in at least like 2 days a week, and it's been great to like get back in person. But I will say, like when I go downtown, I take public transit, and it's not nearly as packed as it used to be. And I'm sure a lot of that's hybrid work. People are starting to go back to the office. So when I notice the bigger influx, it's usually going home. For some reason, the time I tend to go down is a little bit past like 8 a.m., like the 8 a.m. rush. So I suspect if I went down earlier, I'd see more people. But I tend to see it like right around like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock when I try to get out of the office. So because I don't need to stay there later. It just prevents the inevitable. Like I'd like to get home at a decent time to hang out with my son for a little bit because I didn't get to be with him all day. It's tough. You got to like compartmentalize your time, and I don't know. And it's funny because like when I was a kid, my mom was like, "Oh, go out and enjoy your day. I don't want to see you in the house. Like go out." I get why she did that, because all of a sudden here I am in my like almost mid 40s, and I'm like, "Oh my God, am I really that old?" Like pinch myself, and I'm like, I mean, I don't feel like I'm that old.
We swore we were no older than like what, 21, 23?
I mean, that's how I feel some days. But then I think about it, like next year I'll have lived in Chicago 20 years, and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, that's kind of long if you think about it. 2 decades of life in Chicago. So
Nebraska girl. Yeah.
I know. And I at some point I do have a corn hat. I used to give it. I gave it to my wife. I gave it to my wife as a joke, and she kept it in her apartment until we moved in together. And she's like, I have no reason for this corn hat anymore. And so it's in my. I'm still moving stuff down. I need to figure out where I want to put it, but I figure out like how if I could put like in a fun spot behind me. Although when I'm fully up with my actual computer that I stream from, usually I'll be on the other side, so I'll have to find a more fun spot, a funner.
It works.
My English teachers are all like freaking out now. Didn't we teach Shannon how to speak correctly? Anyway, I'll find a spot on the other side when I get everything set up over there. But it's a process.
See, I think you did that on purpose. You just don't really want to write a book, so you made up a word. No, everybody's like, no,
she can't write a book. Well, I mean, I have created courses. I created 2 courses over the course of the pandemic, and that was rough. There's a lot of time that you have to commit towards it, and I shouldn't have done 2 at once. And I think that was famous last words. I can do it. No, you can't, Shannon.
Right.
I mean, I did it, but it did take a lot longer because I did do 2 at the same time. And then I think, I just got to find that book to write. I just don't know what book to write. Maybe it'll come to me someday, because I do think I want to write a tech book before I am done with my career and retired. Because when I'm retired, I'm like, bye. I'm like, you can have fun. I'm going to still be doing what I do. And I even said this joke recently too. I said, like, you focus what the hyperscalers say, people are at the AI layer of their, evolution. They're not. They're so not. And I think I made the joke recently to a customer who was feeling like they were behind. And I said, listen, there's still going to be VMs around when we retire. We're good. We are good. Yeah. There's still be VMs. There's still be infrastructure on-prem. It might be not the same amount of infrastructure that you had when you started your tech career, but there still will be servers and switches and VMs and, storage, right? Like, so
for sure.
It's just interesting to see the evolution of how things shift and change. It's changed, but I don't think it's fully, microservices, fully cloud for everything, fully SaaS, fully PaaS,
No, definitely
not. Now you want me to, I want to ask the question, do we have an idea how many AS400s are out there in the world?
Oh, probably more than you would admit. So at one point, I don't know if this is still a thing, Microsoft was figuring out how to do mainframes as a service. And I don't even know how many adopted it, or I know they were going around and they were talking to customers who had a lot of mainframes still in their environment. And I know that they were considerate, and I hope I'm not breaching anything, but I mean, I think it was for sort of common knowledge, because they were fishing out for the community, trying to find customers that were still running mainframes. And
I mean, a lot of healthcare systems, a lot of pharmaceutical,
mainframes, some government entities and things of that sort. So it's interesting how many are still running on healthcare and insurance, I think too, was another one I found. So it's interesting because, and then so I've seen some folks out there who went to school for mainframes, and they aren't that much younger than I am. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I didn't know that was a thing. I guess it is.
I didn't either.
Yeah. So I was, you live and you learn. You find out some of these interesting things over the course of your career. And you don't really quite realize that there was a specialty or a focus. You could have focused on mainframes in college. I probably would have snoozed and not passed.
Yeah, same.
I probably would have. So, but I mean, I think a lot of it's, I don't know if both of you feel this way, but I feel like a lot of us, we have a little bit of the ADHD, we get excited about the new, the shiny.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I think that's how you get in this career. I don't know.
Right.
Do you want to learn the new thing?
You don't want to focus on the old. Well, and I've always,
you still got to maintain it, nurture it.
I guess that's true. Yeah. The foundation doesn't change. Right.
Yeah.
So, but if you both of you were to think about your career, where it started and where it is now, is it very different than what you thought?
Oh yeah. I mean, I went for web design than the .com.
Web design. I didn't know that, Amy.
Yeah.
How'd you get into VMware?
It's a long, the TLDR. I did an internship at a school supply kit company. They actually got bought out by Staples, so I should have stayed and made big money, I guess.
Yeah.
But I handled their website design, but then I was also doing the backups to tape, but kind of.
Oh, that was that job. I remember you talking a little bit about that job. I didn't realize it was you got hired on for web design though. That was
that was so I could play web designer or create the forms for ordering. But then I left for less money to do a help desk job, and because I didn't see opportunity there. So then I went and started help desk, which and then,
nobody wants to stay in help desk. Those career help desk people, we got to check in on them, because it's why did you stay in help desk? But I mean, then again, some people are just well versed in that role.
Yeah, it's their superpower. But that was paying your dues. And then telecom, then networking, then Windows engineering, then VMware. And now,
so you bounced around too. Chris, you did the same thing though, didn't you? So it sounds like, at least.
Yeah. I mean, I started. So I went out and looked for, coming out at robotics, C++, computer science degree, right? I'm like, I want to take this and do great things and do all kind of stuff. And I looked at Paychex, which is right here, and they wanted a software engineer to come in, and Nixon at the time, who wanted somebody for support desk, for service desks. So I'm like, okay, well, this legal firm wants to pay me X amount more than the other place, and I'm going to have to do harder work over at this other place and get paid less. So I'm not going there. I'm just going to the other thing. I was there for 6 months, and then that's when we're like, project server. We're going to set up project server in SharePoint, and that was the putting the disk in the server, and that was I'd say the end of my career, but that was really the beginning of my career. So.
It's one of two.
Yeah, but seriously, it was the same deal. It's I went out and took SharePoint and just, it's like they didn't really have a good way to make it look nice. So you had to really roll up your sleeves and get in
You
CSS.
did.
So
Yeah.
at that time, it's huge CSS, web design, whatever. I had that background. I used it very infrequently for that year or so. And then we switched out to, I don't know, some other portal product and, just bounced around. But same deal. It's like, did a little bit on the app side, like Shannon was saying, coding, whatever else, C#, ASP.NET when it first came out, built a bunch of stuff and then said, the heck with that. I like the infrastructure more, and that's more fun to just make things and, build stuff and tear it down and, make stuff happen there.
Yeah.
So infrastructure side, I try to not get too involved with the networking. I can do it, but not my gig.
Yeah, I'm always like, I should not be pulled in for deep networking conversations. Like, we should have like a layered approach. Like, I should be like the one they call if like 3 people in front of me don't have a job. Like, they got not hit by a bus, but they won the lottery, right? Like, so there should be a contingency plan. When I used to work with Jeremiah Dooley, he was always like, you cannot say hit by a bus, and I'm like, why? And he's like, because I feel like you're playing with fate. So shout out to Jeremiah. I've now changed it to win the lottery because I feel like that's a little bit more positive. But yeah, win the lottery. Yeah. So if like 3 people in front of me win the lottery and they don't have a job, then I should be pulled in. But even then, the customer should just be like, ready for, Shannon may not know the answer. Same with SQL. Like, I run from SQL. I can do things networking wise. I can do things SQL wise, but I am not going to be your database administrator by any stretch of the definition. I always had people who did that for me, and then also SharePoint. But then I was their Exchange person, so it was just this weird sort of commingled thing I've done over the years, and I just always knew who my experts were to pull in, and you wind up learning a lot, especially if they're pulled into the same call, so you can have some of the deeper conversations and get to the right part of the solution. But it's you wear like 18 caps, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, what I found is you learn a lot, right? Because there's a couple fire moments where you get really thrown in the fire, you got to fix whatever else, but you also learn what you might not want to ever touch again.
Right. Like, that's not for me.
So for me, like messaging, I had to manage some archiving systems and stuff for years. It was, I was good at it. Did I like it? Yeah. They paid the bills.
Yeah.
but you learn, you learn like what you really want to kind of do.
It's true. It's true. The experimentation's key.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I was almost CCNA certified, network.
Wow.
I was just,
But you were like, don't call me in for networking.
Well, no, I played that, I was a network engineer for a few years. And then I guess I kind of shifted to the VMware side of things as we started getting, but then it was nice because then I could actually load up my own SAN to boot from and then configure the networking. I didn't have to wait for anybody.
Yeah, that's true. Because I remember when I started playing around with the networking layer, I like lost VMs and lost functionality and had to like redeploy. And I'm like, oh God.
Oh yeah, I would tag my VLANs and I'm like, sweet, I get a host up and running within a few hours. So
nice.
That's before change control and
yeah, right. Oh,
had to ruin everything.
I know. People need to know when things are going to be down, right? Yeah. And it's the structure, the standardization. I just want to take it down. Come on.
Right. Come on.
Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour. I was going to plug Chris's Linktree once more.
For sure.
Thank you.
This is all of Chris's links. You've got the meetup, the YouTube, buying the book. So there's all kinds of stuff there. And then we also have our Twitter handle, Connecting the Cloud.
Yeah.
So, and then I'll do this one more time so that we, get back out there.
Awesome. Yeah. Click all the things, follow me.
Click all the things, find all the Linktree links.
Like, subscribe.
Yeah. Smash the like button, right? Find us on YouTube. I forget. Do one of these? Is this it? Yeah, this is it. Hang on. Here's the YouTube.
Perfect.
Nice.
There's the YouTube. And then I think this is our LinkedIn group, I think. But I mean, who's going to remember that number? So let's go back to the YouTube channel because all of our videos show up there after the fact.
Then you can find LinkedIn.
This is what Dwayne missed out on. Dwayne's like, I'm going to have full control over StreamYard.
Right.
I'm like,
You're never allowed to.
Yeah, now I'm never going to be able to because I'm just go back and forth through all kinds of stuff. But yeah, it was weird because he's got all his Azure back to school stuff too. And I was like, oh God, I'm glad he actually did that with me because I would have been like, I don't know what to use. So he's got everything queued up here. Like, so Dwayne is a machine. I don't know where he has the time. But
I
guess he doesn't sleep like Chris. Maybe.
no.
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah, I think we all kind of
My
have
God.
sleep problems. Let's start there, right? Like,
Yeah.
do you have
Right.
problems sleeping at night? You might be ready for a career in IT.
Tech.
Right?
Do great things with your lack of sleep.
Do you like being woken up at all times of the no?
It's true,
No,
right? You
no.
might like a job in IT. Yeah,
At least get
exactly.
some money for it. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, we are so the cast of Dwayne and Amy will be back in 2 weeks. I will be on vacation.
Yep.
And then we start kicking into some of the other guests we've got for the rest of the year. So stay tuned, stay locked. Thanks, Chris, so much.
Thank
and
you.
we will talk to you all soon.
All right.
Okay.
Take care,
All right.
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.